Well, it's one for the money, two for the show, three to get ready. Now go, cat, go.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get with it and be far out, this is the rock and roll, the 50s video for you. The roots of rock and roll lay in the African American blues and gospel that were introduced by former slaves from the South. Some people say that country music was also a contributor to developing rock and roll. Many people believe that rock and roll is just a fast-paced version of rhythm and blues. Due to the baby boom, the generation of youth in the 1950s was much larger than it had ever been before, and the prosperity of the time allowed for more spending on records and phonographs. Advances in technology also helped the rise of rock and roll. Records went from the large 78s to smaller 45s, allowing teens to purchase and listen to music in their bedrooms rather than sitting around the phonograph in the family living room. The creation of the transistor radio, as well as radios becoming a more common option in cars, were two things that allowed teenagers to listen to their own music and not that of their parents. By the end of the decade, the phenomenon of rock and roll helped define the difference between youth and adulthood. It wasn't until 1951 that Alan Freed actually coined the term rock and roll. Freed was a disc jockey from Cleveland, Ohio on WJW. Although the term was referenced in songs from the 1940s, Freed used the term to talk about the genre of music. Many white Americans enjoyed the sound of rhythm and blues, but the genre and its black artists would only be played on race music outlets, and therefore were hardly listened to by white audiences. Freed was able to play black artists' music on his radio station by calling it rock and roll. The Iron Belt, including Chicago, Cleveland, and Detroit, was full of black families coming north looking for work. The music being played in the black radio stations in those cities was rhythm and blues, which eventually became rock and roll. Some of these famous black artists that were being played were Little Richard, Chuck Berry, and Fats Domino. The music of these men was well known in the black population, but for young white people, this was the first time they'd ever heard it. They loved it, and since the white audience was so much larger than the black, radio stations and record companies predicted a major shift in listening patterns. Early attempts by white artists to cover R&B songs were unsuccessful. Record producers still saw the potential and began to search for a white artist who could capture the African American sound. Sam Phillips, a Memphis record producer, found the answer in Elvis Presley. With a deep southern sound and gyrating hips, Elvis became a rock legend. Bill Haley is often credited with some of the first rock and roll songs as well. His chart toppers include Shake, Rattle and Roll, and Rock Around the Clock.
I roll my breakfast 'cause I'm a hungry man. I say shake, rattle and roll. Come on, shake, rattle and roll.
Rock and roll influenced more than just the music industry. It created clothing trends such as blue suede shoes and much more tight-fitting clothing. It also brought on dance trends, including the jitterbug and sock hops. Some of the dance moves, including Elvis's gyrating hips, were considered extremely provocative and led to rock and roll being called Satan's music. Rock and roll is also said to have encouraged more self-expression and free thought, which led to the hippies in the 60s. The racial combination of rock and roll helped bring along acceptance for another race and cooperation between races. Rock and roll definitely helped pave the way for desegregation in Canada and the US.